Gabe, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid talked today. Any takeaways from what they said, or any player takeaways? Because this was the team's last talking appearance until they leave for the Super Bowl.
I found it funny that there's a little peek behind the curtain from Justin Reid about just how big of a hole Super Bowl tickets run these guys, and the reminder that they are not just being comped tickets because they are playing in the game, which I think is a little bit insane to a certain level, but also when you're bringing 30 people, like Justin Reid said he's doing as a Louisiana native.
Yeah.
I don't know if the NFL should necessarily hand away what is roughly like $125,000 in tickets for people, but we'll see what it's like.
Even the nosebleeds, but then would the players want them getting the Jordan Love treatment? Remember that when he made his debut for the Packers?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Gabe was sitting front row and.
No, I was in Phoenix for that one. I remember that. So there was that. I know that Andy Reid was asked about if the three-peat conversation is getting into the locker room, and I think that for the most part, I do tend to believe him when he says that it's not something that he mentions. I think that this team is singularly focused on the goal. I think that the goal is driven by three-peating.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the guys sit around the locker room and say, you know what, like, we would be doing something that no one else has ever done before. Like, can you guys imagine how awesome that would be?
I don't think that they do that
because they're very aware of the magnitude of the moment, and it's driving them, along with the fact that people don't want to see them do it or don't think that they will do it. And we've started to see the predictions and conversations come in, and now we're getting people talking up the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a very good team.
Yeah.
I think that the Eagles are a very formidable opponent. I think that the Chiefs could lose this game. Absolutely, I think that's the case. But I think that in general, people are starting to do the thing with the Chiefs in the playoffs that we used to do, or I feel like I used to do, with like Alabama football in the playoffs. And with Alabama football in big bowl games, where I'm sick of seeing them win, and so I talk myself into somebody beating them when they're not, when it's probably not the likely outcome.
I think that's part of it, but I also think their showing against the Commanders that was a strong show, mainly offensively. I think offense makes people's eyes go bug-eyed, and the offense did worse, and the way they ran the ball, and they look at, It's not like the Chiefs have the greatest run defense in the history of the world. I think they have a good enough one that can stop Hurts and Barkley. But, it'll be interesting to see how they adjust. The good news is, Gabe, that they have the core in place that has faced challenges like this. They played a really good San Francisco team in this game last year. The Eagles, they just saw them 2 years ago, and they put up 35 points, and they still found a way to win. And that is a credit to how this dynasty was built. Basically, want to start off giving the flowers to Brett Veach for once again pulling all the right flags. Is that a phrase? Pulling all the right strings. There we go. I don't know where I got flags. And the entire
you're just so focused on refs.
You
can't get flags off your mind.
Shout out Ronnie Hawkins. But now I'm all over the place. So. No, I want it because as I was thinking of a topic, because we'll talk Chiefs Eagles and get in the matchup. We've got a long time to talk about it. It'll feel like a long 2 weeks. But Gabe, I think this is a time where the Chiefs can take a bit of a victory lap in that getting back to the game. I mean, I think it's safe to say this is the greatest three-year run in NFL history. You'd agree with that?
Objectively, yes.
Yeah, because I know the Bills made it 4 straight Super Bowls, but they never won one. So the Chiefs winning 2, getting back to a third, and it defies the odds. Why do you say that? Because of the salary cap, okay? And players can go out and make more money elsewhere. The Chiefs made the right decisions on who to keep. Trading, and then also draft pick. The Chiefs pick last in every round, so theoretically 31 other teams should have a better chance at drafting, yet they continue to draft well. So when we look back at the wins of how this roster was constructed this year specifically, Gabe, where does your mind go?
Well, I think it goes to the core of the defense being not only a homegrown talent and a perennial All-Pro in Chris Jones, but other guys who in the draft class, when they made the leap and they took the risk of trading Tyreek Hill, they then turned around and turned it into 9 contributors essentially, and several who start or play a significant role. Trent McDuffie is obviously the main culprit of that, but you've seen you've seen the 2 playoff games be the 2 guys that are from that 2022 draft class, first round picks, with being McDuffie and Karlaftis. I think that's probably the number one thing. I think that's the shift. And I remember the day that Tyreek Hill was traded, several of not only my friends from Arizona who are not Chiefs fans, dancing, I think, on what they believed was the grave of the fun Chiefs and the what they believed was the video game Chiefs of Kelsey and Hill and Sammy Watkins and all those kinds of guys. DeMarcus Robinson. And what it turned into was a more methodical offense, but it was still an offense that a year later produced the NFL MVP in Mahomes, and I believe they were the number 1 scoring offense, and so they just retooled and did it a different way, and then giving the space for the defense while building the defense and being younger. I think that this offseason, not to jump ahead of the game, but I think it's a very similar position that they're in, where they have several critical players to make decisions on whether to bring back or not, and that's Nick Bolton, that's Trey Smith, and
it's kind of been that way. They have a lot of draft,
and that's what they kind of did the same thing a year earlier. Taking a year out of L'Jarius Sneed and giving him up to benefit nothing toward this year's team. Nothing was gained on this year's team by trading L'Jarius Sneed. Something, in theory, is gained in the 2025 version of the Chiefs when they get the first overall pick of the 3rd round of the NFL draft, because the Tennessee Titans were not very good.
And so that's where I think there's, when you look at this track record, because this is in some ways a dynasty that started with that first iteration, Gabe, but it's one that was elongated because of this three-peat, because of the decisions that you're talking about. And I think you absolutely need to start with that 2022 draft, which starts with the Tyreek Hill trade. Now, not that this is breaking news, but I just want to reiterate and hit home that trading Tyreek Hill, we can update it now and say, what did they do since that trade? They made 3 straight Super Bowls and have won at least 2. With an offense that was good enough.
It's Tyreek Hill, arguably the best trade in NFL history. Like you could make the case.
And that became, it was a win after they won the first Super Bowl. Even so, I know this isn't breaking new ground, but I think it's important to realize when we talk about how this team was built. Starts with that. Trading up to get Trent McDuffie. George Karlaftis was selected at the end, but they made a decision that Brett Veach said, no, we value McDuffie so much that we're going to give up later picks to jump up. They jump ahead of Buffalo, who drafts Kyer Elam, and you saw the difference in the game. Elam was burnt toast, and whereas Trent McDuffie was awesome. That decision was great. Same with Brian Cook, Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, Sky Moore has only known Super Bowls. I mean, you name it. That draft was the pillar of this dynasty that I think absolutely is where you start, Gabe.
Yeah, it has to be. I think that there's several other things, and I think that's the interesting thing as they continue to roll on. Is it does feel like the next doubt that is coming in Mahomes' direction as people debate his legacy and they debate whether he is the second best or the best quarterback of all time, because those are the only two logical outcomes at this point, is will he be able to have a second or a third run? Because Tom Brady with the Patriots had the early run where he was not the driving force, that he was along for the ride, and they had some elite defenses. He had the middle stretch where he had unbelievable stats, unbelievable winning, but they didn't win the Super Bowls. That includes the undefeated season in which they came up short to Eli Manning. It includes 2011 when they lost Eli Manning.
The Chiefs came actually pretty close to that undefeated. I mean, only a fourth. Now the question is, Would they have played their stars in Denver at the end if they were perfect? Probably not,
so.
and then you probably still lose the game. But the starters, if they do beat the Eagles, came one win away from a perfect season.
Yeah, so there's that, and then Brady retooled, and he had the whole Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman era. I think that the next stage the next stage is going to be people doubting Mahomes and Andy Reid winning significant games without Travis Kelce.
Yep.
And I will just predict that is coming as soon as Travis Kelce hangs it up, whether it's after next Sunday or whether it's after next year.
For sure, and I think that's where the Chiefs need to keep hitting on these wins, and that's why I wanted to bring this up so that Chiefs fans have trust when they make hard decisions, and they let Nick Bolton walk out the door. They let Trey Smith walk out the door to say that, hey, sometimes this works out for the better, Gabe, because also the decisions that they've made in this dynasty, they let Orlando Brown walk. Shout out Ronnie Hawkins. They let Orlando Brown walk and replaced him with lesser players to a degree, and haven't missed a beat because they saved money and spent it elsewhere. That was a great decision. As much as Neil Jones doesn't want to admit it, that absolutely has worked out. And letting players walk just like they let Tyrann Mathieu walk. And they replaced him with Justin Reed, who has probably been better than Tyrann Mathieu and a better fit. That was a really tough decision. It was one that I didn't really want to see him let him go. They didn't. It was the right call. So it's not just about signing and bringing in, okay, Hollywood Brown, that's a good signing. Juju Smith-Schuster, first signing in the back. That's a good. It's not just about who you bring in. It's also about who you say, you know what, we appreciate you, but we're going to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I almost wonder to a certain extent how many of the decisions are critical versus how many of them are. It's like at the end of the day, you have the ultimate 2 erasers or the ultimate 3 erasers with Spags, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes, where regardless of what they decide,
that's true,
they're going to be able to deliver at the end.
I don't know. I think that diminishes, though, because I think we've seen a lot of good quarterbacks not win because of boneheaded decisions, or whether you look at Drew Brees and New Orleans, not at the level of Mahomes, Reid, but that are, not far behind necessarily, that I think the decision to go from Cairo Santos to Harrison Butker, I think that was John Dorsey, but no, I think that was Brett Veach because that was Mahomes' first year starter. So that would have been either way. Every decision in this, and then the most recent one that I don't think people are realizing, that another thing that made me want to talk about this, the Chiefs re-signed Chris Jones this offseason to a massive payday, Gabe. Massive. And there are people in this town that said the Chiefs absolutely should not do that. You should say thank you, Chris Jones, for your work, and let him go be the highest paid defensive player elsewhere. That's not great for the greater good. And maybe if the Chiefs stink the next couple of years, you can make that argument. But in year one, with Chris Jones having a massive contract, they've gotten back to the Super Bowl, in part led by Jones and a great defense. You can't shut the door on it, but I think it's going to be pretty hard for that Chris Jones contract not to be a good contract, especially with the way he played this year at just an amazing level.
Yeah, and even considerably minor moves when it comes to the full dollar amount, but even a decision of letting Tommy Townsend walk and bringing Matt Araiza in. It's like figuring out what positions are worth paying at a premium level relative to the position and what's not. That's what the Chiefs have been able to do, and that's why I think that this offseason is fascinating, because whether you view middle linebacker or right guard in higher esteem in terms of team building and what else you have around the roster, and
they may not even have enough room to keep either of them.
Yeah,
that's where I think signing Creed Humphrey made it a lot hard. Because this conversation originally was held with Creed Humphrey. They already decided on him. Justin Reed's also free agent, and so big decisions. But in this year, Gabe, not even the bigger ones, the 1-year deals. Samaje Perine, I think that's been a good signing by Brett Veach. Underrated. Kareem Hunt, good signing. Trading for DeAndre Hopkins, I think he's been worth a 5th-round pick. Yeah? Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, then Hollywood Brown got hurt. But that, when they need him most, he's in there. I think even from a free agency standpoint, the only one that didn't really work was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that had some outstanding circumstances, and Kareem Hunt kind of filled that that role. McCole Hardman maybe to a degree, but the left tackle situation hasn't been perfect, but they've worked around it. And so that's where I'm not saying they're without failure. But so, like, I think when you add this all up, it's like, yeah, that's why they won, because they made so many right decisions. Then when you factor in all these right decisions with Mahomes, Kelsey, Reed, you get a dynasty.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, there are other sports here in Kansas City. One that just made a move. We haven't really had a reason, in my mind, there's always a reason to talk Royals, but a real reason to talk Royals, really haven't had one in a little bit, because it's been a bit of a quiet offseason, in part because their biggest free agency move, Gabe, was signing Michael Walker, which they did at the very beginning of the offseason. That was their big money move. And other than that, the only real big move has been a trade by trading Brady Singer for Jonathan India. Michael Lorenzen they re-signed, Braden Shoemake, Kevin Biggio. These are, lower end moves. But I think the only real big true free agent signing happened yesterday. Reportedly, the Royals have not officially released this yet, so we don't know who they're removing from the 40-man roster. But Carlos Estevez is a 2023 All-Star with the Angels. He pitched for the Angels last year and Phillies last year. He was traded. He's someone on the level of Lucas Erceg. For Royals fans that might not be familiar with him, not a prime Wade Davis closer by any means, but he had 26 saves last year, coming off one of his best seasons with a mid-twos ERA. He's someone that, Gabe, is a right-handed guy that can top out at 97, 98 mile an hour. And I don't know if he's their closer, if Erceg is their closer, or if one of them is firemen, or maybe they both will close games. Either way, the Royals are better today than they were 2 days ago.
Yes, that's the main point. I think that Erceg would still be the closer because I think he has more of the strikeout stuff. I do think that the most encouraging thing about Carlos Estevez, whether you believe it's repeatable or not, he did have a career best in WHIP last year, and he was particularly really strong at avoiding walks.
Yep.
And that is something that did in the Royals during the playoffs, was way too many walks to the Yankees.
Point.
So
and I credit the Yankees a lot for that.
Yes.
More than the Royals couldn't throw strikes, because during the year they were decent at that. But in the postseason, you're going to face teams that
are going to be more selective at the plate. And I think that the bullpen has turned from a legitimate liability from the first 3 months of last season into,
I'd go until end of August.
Yeah.
Because even when they added Erceg, it was Erceg and no one else. And then in September,
yeah, but they were starting to figure it out. September they had it figured out.
Sam Long, John Schreiber got back, was better.
Zerpa was even doing better.
James MacArthur was not in there, and he had been an issue for a long time.
Yeah,
Carlos Hernandez, right? But in August, it was still Erceg kind of flipped the switch July 31st. But as a collective unit, that bullpen in September was great.
So I think that is an encouraging sign. In whatever order that they end up moving into, they're in a spot where they have multiple guys now with strikeout stuff, which was the main concern last year, was that they went such a long period of time with very little swing and miss in the bullpen.
Will Smith,
and that's
couldn't
why
strike anyone out. Nick
James
Anderson,
MacArthur, when he was
Chris
closing
Stratton.
games, it was like he's going to give up contact. It's just a matter of whether it's hit in play or not. So I think that is a overwhelmingly positive thing, and he's also not too old at this point.
32.
Yeah, he's in a good spot.
2-year deal, $22 million plus an option. I think that's a bit. Ideally for the Royals, you'd like it to get to the point where you just have a million pitchers and you don't have to spend that much money on a reliever. But I think they saw last year how important the bullpen can be, and that they're saying, on paper, without Estevez, they could have had a great bullpen, but you're relying on Lucas Erceg to be just as good, Hunter Harvey to come back from injury and be the player he was at times, which is not a guarantee, Sam Long, who is a spring training invitee to replicate his success, Anil Zerpa, who doesn't have that much of a track record, John Schreiber, James MacArthur, Daniel Lynch. All these guys you just named have had success, and Gabe could be good, which is why I think the ceiling of this bullpen is really high now. But in all likelihood, some of those guys are going to take a step back. Okay, some of them aren't going to meet expectations. And now, though, I think their floor and realistic expectation is average bullpen to a little bit above average, and at least a bullpen that can really shut down the 8th and 9th inning, which is a huge progress.
Yeah, and even to a certain extent, they don't need to be one of the best bullpens in the league if the starting pitching is still decent, and if they can make up being going from one of the worst bullpens in the league last year to one of the more average bullpens, that kind of equals or makes up the gap that Cleveland, which had a incredible bullpen that is almost unsustainable to be that good again.
Yeah.
You would think that they would come back toward you a little bit. So
Cleveland's, but that's the model. When I said you'd like to not spend $22 million on a reliever, Cleveland hasn't, and they've been amazing because they just have so many pitchers. But the Royals, you can't build Rome in a day. All right, they've now have the starting pitching depth. The bullpen depth is maybe, but you like to extend your margin for error, and that's what this does for me, Gabe. If Erceg goes out, hits the IL for a couple weeks, you're not toast. Whereas in the past, maybe you would be. James McArthur is a fine, pitcher. But why everybody didn't like him is because he was put in the 9th inning on a winning team, and he would lose a game every now and then. It wasn't like he was bad every single time. Now they have the luxury of having more depth and increase that margin for error, which I think is so big. Because, Gabe, also, there's not been an outfield bat added unless you consider Jonathan India. And right now, you would pencil him in at DH.
Second base.
Okay, then Michael Massey at DH. Either way, right now you still have MJ Melendez, Kyle Isbell, and Hunter Renfroe as your 3 starting outfielders. And I think that's something a lot of Royals fans would go, oh, I don't know if that replicates to a whole lot of success. And there might be a move to make. We don't know. Or if we think Massey or India could play in the outfield, and then if you move Salvi DH and Fermin gets more at-bats catching, there's ways to work this. But I don't think there's a big bat coming anymore. And so I think, do you agree with the philosophy that Estevez signing is throwing more money into the pitching and say, you know what, maybe next year we'd add another bat, but this year let's win games 3-2. Let's hope our stars can continue to carry the offense with Witt Jr., Pasquantino, Salvi, Massey, India, and let's just have our pitchers go 6-7 innings, turn it over to this back end of the bullpen, and we're going to win games 4-3.
It's an interesting choice because you're essentially doubling down on having incredible performance from Bobby, Vinny, and Salvi.
Yes.
And you're hoping that Jonathan India and, knock on wood, healthier Michael Massey are able to produce at the top of the lineup to offset how poor you were at the leadoff spot last year.
And that's 5. Then you've still got 4.
Maybe they're being optimistic that they can. I think that you're also, if you're just rolling with what you've got right now, you're really hoping for either the retooled MJ Melendez swing to be drastically improved, or you're hoping that the September numbers of Michael Garcia are more in line with
numbers.
The playoff numbers. He was solid in the playoffs. That those are more in line with what you're going to get again. I don't know if that's the way to do it, but it seems like that's the track that they're going for.
I think there's absolutely a world where it works out and this offense is plenty good enough, but there's a lot of ifs there. More ifs than I would like, because not only do you have your ifs because I think you have your top 5 hitters, then a gap. And so not only is there, okay, what are you going to get out of Kyle Isbell who can't hit lefties? Now, Joey Wiemer might, but that's a big if. Okay, Kyle Isbell, MJ Melendez, Hunter Renfroe, Michael Garcia, Freddie Fermin. Those are all ifs. Salvi's getting older. Vinny has gotten hurt the last 3 years, Bobby, is he going to be one of the greatest players, have one of the greatest seasons in Royals history again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Jonathan,
so.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's that good.
I could. I mean, that's just tough to absolutely expect that he
I think he can walk more. I think he
hit more home runs.
Yeah.
But again, if the Royals are counting on Bobby Witt Jr. to take another step forward, then maybe, but that's a tough plan. And same goes with Jonathan India and a new ballpark, a new team. It's just, I would like one more bat of certainty. However, I, like some Royals fans, don't think that, oh, if they don't add another bat, they're screwed. I don't think that's the case.
Yes.
Because I think they have potential in the lineup. And I think with the pitching, with bringing back Waka, with Bubic in the rotation, with your guy Alec Marsh can make 20-plus starts. No, I'm just kidding. Kyle Wright. Like, I think there's enough pitching that the Royals still could win. So, either way, I'm glad the Royals made a move. I'll be at Royals Rally on Saturday to talk to the guys. And I hope a lot of fans go out as well. So, final thoughts, Gabe, college hoops. We don't talk about it much, but I just want to get your quick take. KU coming off a win over UCF where they barely get by. Mizzou coming off an upset win over Ole Miss. K-State blows out Oklahoma State. They actually have played well in a couple games. Any college basketball storyline that you want to close on in the last minute?
I think that KU is just continually in this spot where they're trying to figure out what their best lineups are and who the 7 guys that Bill Self is going to trust in March are. I think that 7 and 8, the 7th and 8th spot in the rotation are the question mark. Tuesday night it would have been when they played UCF. I think David Coit took a decent step toward that because DeJuan Harris didn't play and he got some run. It seems like the AJ Storr thing has kind of, it's just not going to work out. I don't know. But I still think that KU is one of those teams where this team is better than last year's team. Last year's team was extremely reliant upon Allen Fieldhouse to be really good, and they were atrocious on the road. This team has actually shown itself to be decent on the road, and I think that they can make some noise in March if they get the right matchups. I think that Mizzou has been a overwhelming, impressive surprise, and it's also one of those things where now I'm expecting them to be a team that competes for or is in the conversation for like a 4 or a 5 seed in the tournament, whereas when they beat KU, I was thinking, okay, maybe they can be a tournament team, an 8, 9, 10 seed. They've been that much better
because the schedule,
and they have so many opportunities in their schedule for
That's
great
what I was
wins.
telling Greg Daly today is that there's a world in which Mizzou has a higher seed than Kansas, not because Mizzou would necessarily be a better team than Kansas, just because Mizzou is going to have so many top 25 win opportunities that KU, now if KU goes on a run and wins a ton, okay, that's going to take care of it. I, in the end, think KU will be seated higher than Mizzou. But that's why the schedule, Mizzou fans, if they play 3 top 25 teams coming up in the next 3 games. If they go 1-2 or 2-1, that's okay. That's just the nature of the league. Because guess what? They're going to have more opportunities to get more of those wins.
Yep.
Whereas KU, I think it was big avoiding that upset against UCF, especially winning without DeJuan, and not having back-to-back Allen Fieldhouse losses. Because Gabe, that Houston game was atrocious.
But it was also one of their best games of the season.
Yes,
and they gave it
Houston finish was atrocious.
They gave away 30 seconds at the end of regulation and 18 seconds at the end of overtime. Erased 45 minutes of really, really good basketball.